Hello, I want to talk about the 4 quadrants, which is a very dry scientific model that was developed by a man called Skinner in the 1930s and 40s, and it evolved into the 1950s and 60s and was formalised there during that time. Now, I wanted to talk about the lost message in that, especially with respect to dog training, because dog training is having extremely calamitous effects on dogs, and hopefully the lost message you will see during this video. Alright, so I want to go through first of all the model. Here it is here. Now basically what it talks about is the 4 types of operant learning, which is learning via the consequences of your actions. So basically we can see here increasing behaviour versus decreasing behaviour. If we want to increase a behaviour in a situation, we use positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. If we want to decrease a behaviour, say barking, pulling on the leash, jumping up on you, you use positive punishment or negative punishment. So punishment, we can see that's something that is raising a red flag already. Okay, now that's a pretty dry model. So where's the lost message? The lost message is the fact that basically, where's the emotion? Where's the emotional state of the animal concerned with respect to this model when we're using any one of those 4 quadrants? And when we consider the number and millions of laboratory experiments that are conducted on animals, even to this day, using that model, then that's a very sad thing, a sad state of affairs. Now basically, with respect to this model, I tried to tidy it up a little bit, make it a little bit more understandable and direct from an emotional point of view with respect to the animal that's being trained. And this is what I came up with a few years ago. Now, you can see it's still pretty cumbersome, but looking at the colours, we can see what would be most desirable from the dog's point of view. The green square would be best, and that's just happens to be positive reinforcement. The yellow area is a little bit cautious because that can still be classified as a negative emotional state on behalf of the dog. And in that situation, we can see what's happening there. We're removing a reward, something that the dog finds desirable, and that's called negative punishment. So we're punishing the dog by removing the reward, and we're going to be causing frustration, where we can compare that to the green area, the positive reinforcement area, quadrant, that's actually causing or resulting in an emotional state of pleasure. So look at the 2 bottom ones. So basically you can see for yourself where what's happening and what part of the brain is being engaged by that dog when they're being forced to endure these types of training methods. So let's discuss this a little bit further. Let's find that lost message. Well, the lost message is that the part of the brain that's being accessed in those red quadrants, and to a certain extent in that yellow quadrant, is the amygdala. And the amygdala modulates fear, it modulates aggression, and it also perceives threats from the environment via another important part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Now this basically results in the sympathetic nervous system being activated, and we have some various responses that can occur: fight, flight, or freeze. Now in situations where an animal has frozen, that means that basically they're unable to process information, sensory information from the environment, form a plan and act on that plan, simply because it's difficult for them to access memory and also process that new information that they're sensing. Now, in anxious dogs, we find that they have a larger amygdala. That means that that part of the brain is more active. That's going to be the go-to part of the brain, irrespective of what quadrant you might be using, because they can still perceive anxiety even when we're using positive reinforcement, and I'll touch on that shortly. they have a larger amygdala. Their sensory information goes to the amygdala first, and that means it bypasses the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is involved in processing emotional regulation and also suppressing fear responses. So that's very interesting, especially when we're talking about how to increase a behaviour or decrease a behaviour based on learning. Well, if an animal is in a flight, fight or freeze state of mind, surely that would mean that they're undergoing anxiety and stress, which is incompatible with their learning pathways being engaged. So that's another lost message. So in anxious dogs, similar to humans, anxious humans have a larger amygdala, and they have similar issues with being able to process information via their prefrontal cortex as well. So that's interesting. But with anxious dogs, their hippocampus, another part of the brain that's responsible for forming memories, certain types of memories, that the volume of their hippocampus, the size of their hippocampus, is reduced. And so basically that means that they're unable to learn. And so this is contradicting the operant conditioning model with respect to the 4 types of learning. So once again, when we're subjecting an animal to stress and anxiety in a training session, their learning pathways are not going to be engaged. Now, there's all types of other types of stress that they call eustress, which is a good type of stress. But basically, I'm talking about the emotional state of an animal being a positive or a negative one. And if a dog's emotional state is disabling them from performing a basic request, a fundamental request, then there's a very, very serious situation going on with that dog's psyche and that dog's spirit. So back to positive reinforcement, that would be a good quadrant to be in, but we can still be judging, blaming, feeling resentment towards our dogs for not getting it right and not doing what we want them to do. We can still feel those emotions, and that is absorbed by our dog's emotional state as well. They can tell when we're feeling frustrated or angry by the tone of our voice, our countenance, our facial expressions, those sorts of things. The way we stand, the way we interact with our dogs, they're very, very attuned to the way we communicate non-verbally and verbally. So the lost message, to give you an overview, the amygdala is responsible for survival strategies, defence responses in times of extreme danger, especially when an animal needs to respond quickly in order to keep themselves safe. So if the amygdala is the part of the brain that modulates stress, anxiety, fear, panic, rage, what would be the antidote to fear? Well, that would be safety. And this is the completely lost message that this cumbersome model will never be able to uncover. When you're reconnected to your dog, you feel a sense of joy, warmth, empathy and compassion for your dog. That's incompatible with wanting to cause psychological or physical harm to your dog. Your emotional state is one where you're going to be a human being in the present moment. That sense of joy, warmth, empathy and compassion that you are feeling toward your dog is reciprocated to your dog, and then that means that your dog is going to be releasing a hormone called oxytocin, which decreases the activity of the amygdala. It also increases your dog's social seeking behaviour, your dog's play behaviour, and your dog's reward centres in the brain. We can see that green area lighting up again. But it also decreases anxiety-like behaviours. So when we are training with our dog, the lost message that I would like you to see is the one of reconnection with your dog, because that is going to be the antidote to fear and anxiety in your dog. And it's going to be the one that provides a positive emotional state, not just for your dog, but also for you, because you're reconnected with your dog in that situation. So I hope you can see the value of the information that I've tried to convey to you today, and try to uncover that lost message that is in such a dry scientific model that really hasn't been updated by dog trainers or scientists, veterinarians, or the scientific community to humans in a way that is conscious and in a way that takes that knowledge of those 4 quadrants, aligns it with a higher intelligence and gains wisdom from it. So I hope I've imparted that wisdom to you today. And if the one message that I have to you has still been lost, let me repeat it again. Reconnect with your dog. We'll talk again soon.